our city. They burned it with fire. Shall we pursue them? It would seem to me that that would be a dumb question, because if you're facing a superior enemy, why don't you just sit back and leave them alone and count your losses? Well, David said, shall we pursue? And God said to him, thou shalt pursue, and thou shalt overtake, and thou shalt surely recover all. I just came to let somebody know that the good news is that the bad news is not true. And I came to tell somebody that it ain't over until you quit. Yeah. I came by to tell somebody it ain't like that. Look at somebody, say it ain't like that. I don't care what you've been complaining about, it ain't like that. Yeah. It ain't gone, it's just out of sight. Oh, yeah. Joseph isn't dead, he's just out of sight. The lamb isn't dead, it's just out of sight. Your blessing isn't gone, you just can't see it. And that's how we live anyway, because we walk by and not by. You got to see it before you see it. Come on, y'all. Because faith is the substance of things that are hoped for, but the evidence of things that are. Just because you can't see your blessing doesn't mean there is no blessing. Oh, am I in the right house? All of you all are breathing oxygen in this room, but can't none of y'all see it. Oh yeah, there's all kinds of gases and stuff up in the air that you can't see, and just because you can't see it does not mean that it's not here. It's just out of sight. And somebody today needs to get a faith lift. Somebody today is getting ready to shift out of the sight dimension into the faith dimension. And somebody's getting ready to take back what the enemy stole from you. Oh, the lion wanted to destroy that lamb, but God wouldn't let him close his mouth. And somebody needs to know today that it ain't gone, it's just in storage. And the Lord has just been letting the enemy hold it for you until your faith was strong enough to take it back. Oh, just until your faith gets strong enough to repossess what belongs to you. So it's time, as I close today, to send the enemy an eviction notice. Where you going, Pastor Swan? He's got to get out. Yeah, out of my house. Out of my relationships, off my job, out of my church. Send him an eviction notice, and then send him a foreclosure letter. You're getting ready to shut down his place of abode. He can't live here anymore. Not in my life, not in my mind, not in my thoughts. You've got to send him a delinquency notice, because you've been sulking long enough and you're late on your joy. Oh, you're delinquent in your joy. You're delinquent in your happiness. You're delinquent on your praise bill. And it's about time to catch up on your praise bill. Oh, you ought to tell your neighbor that there's some good news today. And that is that the bad news isn't true. It seemed like I'm sick unto death, but this is just for the glory of the Lord. Because every now and then God just got to prove himself. And the Lord allows us to go through situations just so he can prove to you and prove to everybody else just who he is. And so he's just using your situation just to show the world that I am God. Do you remember when the disciples went to Jesus and asked him who sinned that this man would be born blind? Was it his parents that sinned? Was it his mama or his father that sinned? And Jesus said, nobody sinned, but this was done so that the glory of the Lord might be made manifest. Brothers and sisters, I'm just here to tell you that in order for God to work a miracle, you've got to be in a situation that requires a miracle. Oh, bless his name. But I believe, like the Clark sister said, I expect a miracle every day. God will make a way out of no way. Just because man closed the door doesn't mean God can't open it back up. Just because man slammed the window shut doesn't mean God can't blow the window out. Just because the creditor said your credit is too bad doesn't mean that God can't work a miracle. I just want somebody to know that I got good news for you. And the good news is that my God can do exceedingly and abundantly above all I can ask or think or imagine. The good news is that there's nothing too hard for my God. The good news is that with God all things are possible. Have you any rivers that seem uncrossable? Have you any mountains that you cannot tunnel through? God specializes in things that you thought were impossible, and he can do what no other power can do. So if you're sick this morning, I want to introduce you to Jehovah Rapha, the God that heals. Bless his name, for he was wounded for my transgression, he was bruised for my iniquity. The chastisement of my peace was upon him. By his stripes I am healed. Bless his name. I know you got the bad report, and the doctor said 6 months. I'm reminded of when the prophet came to Hezekiah and told Hezekiah, get your house in order, for you shall surely die. And Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and said, I will not accept that news. I will not accept that report. Turned his face to the wall and said, Lord, you know that I live for you. Lord, I'm looking for a miracle. And the scripture said that before the prophet